Thank you for tuning in once again. As a priest for 41 years, I've heard a lot of stories. Beautiful stories. Heartbreaking stories. Stories that have made me laugh and stories that have made me cry. And I think that the reason we all resonate with stories is because they all tell us something about who we are as human beings. We all hurt from the same kinds of things. We all pretty much appreciate similar beauty. We laugh in like circumstances. We cry in times of panic, great joy, and sadness. Stories remind us how connected we all are. I came across a quote from Father Gregory Boyle which says, "It would seem that, quite possibly, the ultimate measure of health in any community might well reside in our ability to stand in awe at what folks have to carry rather than in judgment of how they carry it." Boyle's a Jesuit priest who started Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles. It's a ministry to assist individuals and families that are afflicted by the poverty, drugs, gangs, and incarceration. He believes that healing can only happen when we are in relationship with one another. And the success of his organization is great evidence to support what he believes. Mother Teresa diagnosed the world's ills this way: we've just forgotten that we belong to each other. Kinship is what happens to us when we refuse to let that happen. We're connected. And with kinship as the goal, then a whole lot of other essential things fall into place. Because without kinship, there's no justice and there's no peace. I suspect that if kinship were our goal, we would no longer have to promote justice, we'd be celebrating it. What often happens when there are social fractures, like our current American culture, the Black Lives Matter movement and its backlash, these are just another layer of all this. We end up striking a high moral pose, one that separates us from them. And yet it is the dream of God come true when we recognize that there is no daylight between us. We're all one. That's the Father's plan. One with Him, Christ, one with the Father, and one with one another. We can't see others as them. They're us. They are our brothers and sisters. This is a big vision. It's the world's vision, it's God's vision, and it requires a big heart. And as soon as we start reaching for rules, the exclusions, the divisions, we're following the path of the divider, which is a translation of diabolos, the devil. Even serving others is only a start. It's a good start, but it's just a start. It's the hallway that leads into the grand ballroom. Kinship is not serving the other, but being one with the other. Jesus was not just a man for others. He was one with them. And there's a world of difference between the two. No daylight to separate us. Only kinship, inching ourselves closer to create a community of kinship such that God might recognize it as His. And soon we begin to imagine with God a great circle of compassion. Then we imagine no one standing outside of that circle, moving ourselves closer to the margins so that the margins themselves become erased. This is what Jesus spent His whole life doing. He went to the margins. He did not hang out with the church folks. In fact, He mostly avoided church folks who constantly criticized Him for hanging out with all the sinners. The church folk were all about the rules. Jesus was all about love. They criticized Him, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Pope Francis keeps trying to remind us of this, but I'm afraid a lot of it, sadly, once again, is falling on deaf ears, or perhaps hardened hearts. We are called to stand with those whose dignity has been denied. We are to locate ourselves with the poor, the powerless, the voiceless, the LGBTQ community, the alien, the immigrant, the migrant, anyone who is discriminated against for whatever reason. We are to stand with the demonized so that the demonizing will stop. We are to situate ourselves next to the disposable so that the day will come when we stop throwing people away. The prophet Habakkuk wrote, "The vision still has its time, presses on to fulfillment, and it will not disappoint. And if it delays, wait for it." Kinship is what God presses us onto, always hopeful that its time will come. When our lives' stories are finally told, may they have been about helping to bring about the plan of Christ, the plan of God, a world where all are one, just as the Father and the Son and the Spirit are one. We need to pray to God for opened and softened hearts. Thank you for tuning in.